Welcome back, friends.
Welcome back.
Let's try that again. Welcome back, friends.
Welcome back.
It's time for another episode, an In the Flesh episode.
Another one.
Season 2, Episode 2. Which means we're a third of the way through Season 2. Oh, and I did look up more about the podcast that the Dominic Mitchell wrote. And apparently he announced it in 2022. And that's as far as I got. So I haven't dug any farther. But it's very recent. So it's possible there's a
collab,
a distinct but not remote possibility that it's not out yet. So I'm gonna do some more a collab. I heard you. I heard what you said. I didn't ignore you. I just steamrolled past you.
We'll be his hype man.
Yeah, be like, come on, let's just do it. We should contact him.
We're building up hype.
Yeah, I mean,
right before he releases it.
His hype folks.
Hype folks. I like that.
Yeah, because
hyper folks.
I mean, we'd do it. I'd do it. Come on. You just hand me the scripts. We'll read them. I'll fucking read them for you. It's fine. Because I know this is going to end in a cliffhanger. Because it got canceled and it's on the BBC.
Yep.
And if this episode has taught us anything, no one is safe.
Nothing is sacred.
Nothing is sacred. In fact, I did what I said I wasn't going to do for In the Flesh, and I took notes. I was like, I'll just treat this like movie episodes. We'll just chat it out. But God, it got so complex. I was like, hang on. I got to get my notebook.
She told me there's so much happening. I got
to get my notebook because we're going to not talk about something that I want to talk about. And then I'm going to be listening to the episode to edit it. And I'm going to be like, shit. But before we get started, hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Matt.
Welcome to the Strange and Beautiful Book Club. We forgot to do that last time, and I had to put the music at the very beginning. Which
we're just keeping everybody on their toes.
That's always an indication of how excited we are to do it, because we didn't stop and introduce ourselves. We just rolled with it. The website is up. I just want to put that out there before we get going.
Hey, I actually got to do something.
Yeah, you got to connect it to our strangeandbeautiful.club. So if you go to strangeandbeautiful.club now, there's a nice new website.
Woohoo.
That works.
That has separate pages for each of our published podcasts.
It's got pages. It's got a merch page that just says under construction, but it's there. It's got a podcast page. It's got the book club calendar.
It has nice little Instagram and YouTube icographs.
And I tried putting Patreon up there, but it just made the little link symbol. And I was like, okay, well, let me put in the Patreon symbol. And it was like, no, we already have it. And it was just the link symbol. And I was like, wow, no one's going to click on a link. So that's why Patreon is underneath the banner. But it's there. And I put a handy mini guide to the first 6 months of the book club on Patreon. And I know I've said this before, but I always say it at the end, and I know y'all skip it. And I love you, but I know you skip it. And at the end, I tell you that Patreon is mostly public. So that's kind of like our blog. If you go and follow it, a lot of what I put up there for blog posts is public. And then any content is usually behind the paywall. But at least you can read about what we're up to. Or you can pay $1 a month and get all the content. So I'm just going to leave that there because I want to talk about this In the Flesh episode.
Oh boy, does she.
I mean, they have to cover a lot, and they do. And somehow it doesn't feel rushed, but boy, does it feel full. And we are continuing to explore Jemima's full breakdown. I mean,
yes.
She is in a death spiral.
Mm-hmm. And I like that we're not avoiding it.
Yeah, we're not avoiding it. And I think we're also caught up with all the shit that's happening with Kieran. They're just like, well, Jemima's okay.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I
the
think,
parents don't notice yet.
yeah, and I think Jemima doesn't want to rock the boat. So she's not like, hey guys, I'm literally sleeping on a towel because my night sweats are so bad. Which is really sad.
Mm-hmm.
She has to take the towel that Kieran uses to cover the mirror so he can't see himself when he takes his makeup off. Wow. There's a lot going on in this household. But that's how we open, is Jemima's having a nightmare that she's taking her test and blood is coming out of her pen.
And then everybody turns into
zombies and starts partially deceased sufferers. Or should we just call them the
PDS.
undead? Yeah.
Just call them PDS.
Yeah, PDS sufferers. And try to eat her.
Yep.
And she wakes up and she's so sweaty. She has to get another towel to sleep on, even though it's gone through to her sheets. Poor Jemima.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she still has to go to school.
Right. She changes out the towel. She lays down, pulls the cover up, and her dad's like, Jemima, breakfast. So she comes down, and they're having a French-themed breakfast send-off for Kieran. How cute is that?
Yeah, their parents are super sweet about it.
Yeah, the dad is really trying. And he's made French toast. He's like, a little cholesterol never killed anybody. And the mom goes, ask the vicar. Which I almost made a crack last episode about how this is not real life. This is such a movie trope that you get into a fight and then the other guy dies of a heart attack. And then Matt was talking to his brother, and they literally have a friend who got into a fight with somebody, and when he turned around to walk away, the guy had a heart attack.
Which is really sad.
Like, it happened in real life, and it's really sad. And I honestly thought that that was just like a movie thing. Like, oh God, he's having a heart.
Stressful interaction.
Right.
Followed by heart attack.
Yes, which the only other thing that has happened, the only other corollary to this in my life is I watched a Mythbusters where they debunked the myth that a CD could explode in your CD drive. Do you remember that? They ended up having to microwave the CD to weaken it, and then they were able to get it to blow up. But just normal use, no matter what RPM they ran it at, it never blew up.
I think they ended up running it outside of any kind of like disc reader or anything because it couldn't get going fast enough.
Right, and they just couldn't get it to explode. And then I had a friend who was playing Diablo 2, and the disc exploded in her computer. And I was like, Mythbusters, lie!
I liked the one where they were investigating a tractor trailer tire exploding and destroying the car to the side of it.
Yes.
And they spent like days trying to get a tire to explode.
Right.
And then they were like, no, this is ridiculous. We're trying to find out if a piece of retread like that's flung off of a tire that explodes could be moving fast enough horizontally to go through a window and kill somebody.
Yeah.
And so they went through a much easier to reproduce situation where they got tires to explode and measured how fast the retread exploded off.
Yeah.
And then they just shot a piece of retread at a truck window.
I mean,
break the problem down.
I love Mythbusters.
Yeah.
All right, but
lots of valuable problem-solving skills there.
Back to our PDS.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, yeah. Who, speaking of creative problem-solving, apparently the commune has been making its own liquid, like
I said,
medicine.
Now they're injecting apple cider vinegar.
I know, that's what it really looks like.
It's a solution
Matt
for
was
everything.
Like, oh God, are they? It's essential oils.
Okay, it's working.
I mean, yes, it is working. Whatever it is they are using, it is working. But
Mostly.
it is not the commonly prescribed neurotriptyline that everyone else is taking, because
which turns out is a real medication
And they're storing it in a jar,
in the fridge.
which I guess sanitation isn't really. I mean, if you're dead and you can literally survive being stabbed, bacteria is not a problem.
Yeah, probably you must, on some level, be toxic to bacteria.
Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, Amy's hand is
maybe
still
it's
trembling.
a fungus thing, and literally your body is like 20% penicillin.
I mean, isn't that the premise of
Last of Us?
Last
it's a
of
fungus
Us?
and
Yeah,
zombies,
it's the cordyceps. I don't know, because we don't know why they rose
yet.
Although I did note in this episode that the zombie makeup is far less severe this season, than the previous season. Probably because they were going to be going around in zombie face so much more.
Tame PDS sufferer makeup is less severe. But when the kid at school takes a little whiff of some Blue Origin?
Blue Oblivion. Blue Origin. Blue Oblivion. Yeah, he's a little bit more creepy than...
Yeah, like the eye sockets are droopy and...
Yeah, they go full Buffy with it, where they get like a forehead prosthetic. Like rabid people look different. They have like a more demonic face.
And they have black streaky stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that may have, I was thinking that may have been like enhanced by Jem's trauma.
Oh, it could have been, but also could be because of it was Blue Oblivion. They wasn't truly rabid. He was like chemically induced rabid.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where does the extra face stuff go when they get better?
It's
Is it fluid pockets? Is
yeah.
it like a face erection?
It's like edema.
It's like a face erection. Sorry. Kids. On that note, we find out that Simon has been interviewing Risen in Rorton because they're talking to this girl. They're like, well, when did you rise? Do you remember anything about it? And she's like, honestly, I don't fucking think about it. And they're like, fine, that's cool. And Amy's hand has continued to tremble, which she's hiding from everybody.
Except her doctor.
Except she does go to the doctor.
She goes to the doctor. And she fully admits, oh, yeah, we were making our own medicine.
Yeah, I've been using Bragg's apple cider vinegar because that one has the mother, which it always says on the and some peppermint and tea
her
tree
doctor's
oil.
like, well, the doctor's reaction
there's your problem right
was
there.
kind of like, that's not recommended, but it's obviously not horrible for you because you're here having a civil conversation with me.
Yes.
Like seeking improved health outcomes for yourself. So it's not the worst thing in the world to substitute for neurotriptyline.
But maybe it's not the best either. Like, let's just,
your hand is shaking uncontrollably. So,
yeah. And we go back to the parish council and they have passed some new measure.
Philippe has been promoted.
Yeah. Philip is no longer like clerk. He is on the parish council.
He is a councilman.
Yes. And very excited. Because as we talked about in the first season, he's always wanted to get into politics. Or his mom calls it the greasy pole. Did you catch that?
Yes.
She's like, there's more to life than the greasy pole. And I don't know. Do we have British listeners? Can someone tell me what that means? The greasy pole sounds so obscene in some way.
It sounds, my interpretation was that it's something Sisyphean.
Was that your interpretation? I mean, obviously that's what everybody leapt to first.
It's hard work that generally gets you nowhere.
I mean, I got you. I get, Sisyphus. Sisyphus is the guy who rolls the boulder up. Rolls the boulder up the hill every morning and it rolls down every evening or whatever. Yeah. And it's like the Stoics.
Yeah, and
hard work.
The stuff. Well, it was a ancient Greek myth,
right?
About an unbearable punishment. But the Stoics said that we must imagine Sisyphus was happy.
Must we? Must we? Okay. No.
That wasn't the exact quote, but
Yeah. I mean, I got you. Yeah.
the original quote was in Greek,
Right.
and I can't quite pronounce
Greek.
some of those
That's
phonemes.
fine. You don't need to. All right. So Kieran he's trying to get.
Oh, I bet John Kapelos could do it for us.
Oh, John, please.
He's even being Socrates.
Yeah, he was. He put up a video of him talking in the like Socratic accent that he used.
Yep.
It was really good. I wish we could have gone, but all right. So Kieran is at the train station because he's going to take the train to the airport to go to Paris. That was
Going
the
to
whole
Paris.
point of the breakfast.
And I really I'm 80% confident.
Yeah,
that
80%, same as
Kieran
100.
is staying because all the action is happening in Rorton.
Right. There's zero chance our main
And
character is fucking
I
off
like
to
that-
Paris.
I like that they didn't go for cheap like plot device
Yeah.
to convince Kieran to back off himself.
Right. He's going. He wants to.
Right.
He is dressed up. He's got his passport. He's got his suitcase. He's ready to go. Amy meets him at the train station, and Amy is like, hard pass. I don't want you to go. And Kieran is like, hard pass. I am not fucking staying. I'll miss you. I really, really will. And if you want to visit me in Paris, feel free.
I'll write you a postcard.
But I'm out. So he goes to buy his ticket, and Amy is there. And of course, Amy's not wearing makeup because Amy is one of the redeemed. She's converted. She's not don't wear makeup anymore. And she has an interesting line where she asks him, how many layers of cover-up mousse do you have on? How many are you going to be able to take off when you get to Paris? How
far will you have to go to be able
take
to
it
take
all
one off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How far away do you need to run before you can be yourself?
How about let's go to somewhere that's a little less oppressive
Yeah.
and see
Kieran's
where
like,
we are?
I don't know, but I'm kind of ready to find out. If that's a threat, I'm not saying it as a threat. I'm like, yeah, how far away do I have to go before I can be myself? Let's find out. And so he goes to buy the ticket, and the guy's like, oh, are you a PDS sufferer? Sorry, I can't sell you this ticket.
Right. And if Amy wasn't there, he probably wouldn't have been suspicious.
Yeah. Because his passport doesn't say anything about him being PDS.
Because
Yeah.
he got his pass. He should have been grandfathered in.
Right. I mean, we'll talk about that when we get there. Okay. So he says, why don't you just wait? You got to wait. So he waits, and Philip shows up, and Philip's like, oh, we're having a kickoff seminar this morning, and everyone.
And you have to attend.
Yeah. Every PDS sufferer is required to attend.
You absolutely must go. Literally.
Right. Literally.
You have to go.
Like
You're required by law.
It's required. And so they go to this kickoff seminar. But we'll get there. But that's where they have to head. He can't leave because he's got to go to this. Only PDS have to go to it. But he has to go. And we cut back to Jem, who is at school. And she gets outed as an HVF member because they're talking about the people that invented the medicine that would make PDS sufferers not rabid.
Right.
And they're learning about it. And so the one PDS kid who has the hots for Jem is like, well, what about Jem? She's a war hero. Why aren't we talking about the HVF? And the teacher's
Why
kind of
is
like,
HVF not even in the book?
right. And the teacher's kind of like, do you want to talk about HVF? Like the people that killed your people? And he's like, oh yeah, Jem's a war hero. He's just trying to get on her good side because he likes her so much. And she's like, oh, yeah, I guess. I mean, does anybody want to hear stories? Because nobody knew it. Nobody believed she was. It's not like she went around advertising the fact that she was in the HVF, because I think at this point she's slightly ashamed and a little bit conflicted about her feelings about what she did when she was in the HVF, because now she's interacting.
And especially what happened with Rick and Bill.
Yes.
And then the other guys in the HVF.
Right.
Are so cringy.
Yeah, and she's interacting on a daily basis with the same people that, like, maybe a year and a half ago, she was shooting in the head with a gun.
Right.
And it has to lead her to wonder, did I kill people? Because at the time they were monsters, but now they're not monsters, which means that the people that I killed could have been saved.
Right.
And I didn't. And I recognized the picture of one of the dudes who is like the doctor
Yeah.
who invented it. So for sure we're going to meet them. Either that or they just used a British actor's picture. So that would be interesting. So well, I guess we're going to find out. But we go back to the kickoff, which apparently the kids at school don't need to go to. Maybe they don't live in Rorton. School could be somewhere else.
That's true. It could be
Yeah.
a different parish or county or whatever.
Right. And so we get Philip pushes in this total substitute teacher TV DVD combo cart to
Yes.
this group full of PDS sufferers.
They are not entertained.
They are not entertaining. He ends up putting a DVD in, and the DVD is like, hey, you guys are going to be our slaves. Woo! It's our new scheme. They even call it a scheme. Don't call your schemes a scheme. They're initiatives, they're programs, they are whatever, but not a scheme. It's like, these are our not evil scheme to keep PDS sufferers
under our thumbs.
But it's called the PDS Give Back Scheme. And so because the PDS destroyed communities, now they are going to be given the chance to volunteer to rebuild the communities they once destroyed. And so it's this sickeningly positive spin. I don't know why that word wouldn't come out. This sickeningly positive spin on what is effectively slavery.
Yep.
Because they are going to be forced to, quote, volunteer.
It's mandatory.
Mandatorily volunteer to do work with the expectation that in some amount of time they will be evaluated and potentially given the opportunity to be citizens again. So they've been stripped of their citizenship.
Right. They didn't even inform them that their citizenship had been revoked.
Right.
It was only at the end of the video. They were like, and you'll be up for review to be re-citizenized.
Yeah. Oh, surprise, you're not
Hold
citizens anymore.
You took away our citizenship and didn't even tell us?
Yeah, but you're going to get a cool vest. So shut up about it, okay?
And a high five.
And a high five. And the video is so ridiculous. I'm a PDS sufferer, and I'm so excited about a chance to give back. And they're all like, what the fuck is this? And so Ren goes up to Maxine Martin, and he's like, I'm leaving. Like, I bought a ticket. I have my passport. I'm not going to stay. And she's like, oh, can I see your passport? And so he gives it to her, and she's like, oh, yeah, you must have filled out the wrong form.
Or, no, did you do it down in the post office here?
Yeah, they don't have the new form yet.
They're so behind.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a checkbox. You didn't check it, so this isn't valid. Dude, no, that's
It's
government
valid.
issued. It's valid. He could have just dipped with it. I would have been like, oh, okay, and taken the passport
All
and
right.
just walked the fuck to the
I'll
airport.
see you at the mandatory volunteer activity tomorrow. Nope.
But
Just go to a different town with a valid passport.
right, and if he's got enough cover-up moves on, as long as he gets on the plane, what are they going to do? Evict him back to the United Kingdom? I don't know. He ends up going back home, which is really kind of sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's just missed it by that much. By a day. Missed it by a day. But we find out that Jem being in the HVF is actually making her popular. Giving her back some of that feeling of being included that she had in the HVF, but with these like mean girl kids. Yeah. Yeah. And then Kieran returns home. And it's kind of sad because his parents were worried and they're like, well, he said he would call. She's like, well, he said he'd call when he landed. And he hasn't landed yet. Well, he hadn't even left.
Right.
Because he can't even leave. And then we get a little bit more about Philip.
Ooh, Philip. Yes, at the end of the last episode, we got a little clip of Philip going to some type of speakeasy or something where he had to give a password.
Mm-hmm. And now he's sitting and having dinner with his mom, and they're eating on like TV trays. And she's like, Philip. This is when she calls it the greasy pole. She's like, there's more to life than the greasy pole. Have you thought about getting a girlfriend? And he's like, oh my God, Mom, like it's not that easy. And she's like, actually, I made you a dating profile.
How embarrassing.
Lovesick puppies. And she's like, look, here's a local girl. She gave you like 3 paws out of 5. And he's like, Mom, oh my God.
It's like the most embarrassing dating site concept I can imagine.
Horrible.
Luckily, I met Rachel right away, so my mom didn't have to make a dating
I think if
profile
I
for
had
me.
to go on a dating profile or dating site, I'd just be like, and I'm single forever. That sounds so horrible. I mean, if you found your love on a dating site, more power to you. But hopefully it wasn't lovesick puppies. Let's just put it that way. And poor Philip is just as horrified as we are. He's like, oh my fucking God, Mom, you can't do that. And so he's like, I'm leaving. And he runs off to his speakeasy again. The mysterious location. And this time he's getting filmed out
Somebody's
a window.
recording him
Somebody is
from the
recording
building.
him. Yeah. And you know what he wants in this speakeasy?
This speakeasy is a PDS brothel.
It is a PDS brothel.
So he apparently is a regular here.
Yeah.
His regular partner shows up. Oh, you want the usual?
Yeah, the full girlfriend treatment. The usual get up, and he's like, yup.
If you have the time.
If you have the time. So she goes in and changes into like Amy clothes.
Yeah.
And he calls her Amy. And they cuddle.
They snuggle on the bed
And
and watch a movie.
Watch a movie. That was not what I was expecting. I got to admit, I was like, okay, Ishtar, it's probably some kind of a brothel, maybe a PDS brothel, because we know he
has a thing.
He hooked up with Amy. So this might be a thing that, does it for him. Whatever, it's all consensual. So I kind of figured that might be what it is. I was not expecting I am so in love with Amy. I literally role play dating her. I pay people to be her. That was not where I thought that was going.
That was a nice twist.
That was a nice twist. Yeah.
And it feels very in character for Philip.
Yeah. And speaking of Amy, we go back to talk to her again because they are once again injecting their apple cider vinegar. And Simon takes it just fine, but Amy does not.
Right.
She has kind of a
mini seizure.
Yeah. And she's like, I'm fine, dum-dum. Don't ask me about it anymore. I don't want to talk about it. And Simon's like, okay, I guess. And she's like, do you know what we're actually supposed to be doing here? Like, we're supposed to gather everyone together and then what? And Simon's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, here's verbatim my instructions.
Yeah.
It's like, find the first risen in Rorton and gather them.
Full stop.
I think I paraphrased.
No, I don't think you did. I think that was pretty much exactly what their instructions were.
Nice.
Kind of what happens when you listen to people wearing skull masks on the internet. Who could encourage you to join a commune, give up all of your medication that's keeping you sane, and inject apple cider vinegar instead. Is you end up like getting vague tasks. Yeah. There's a book called The Phantom Toll Booth, and there's a scene where he meets, so there's 3 characters that are traveling together, and it's Milo and the Humbug and the Watchdog.
Yep.
And one of them is supposed to dig a hole through the mountain with a toothpick, and the other one has to remove all the water from this well with a teaspoon. And the other one has to move a pile of sand with tweezers.
Yes.
And so every time someone gets a meaningless task like this, find the risen in Rorton and gather them, I think about that. I think they're called the procrastinators or something. They have the whole Phantom Toll Booth is one giant pun. So, anyway, excellent book. Highly recommended. I haven't said that in a while, so I just want to get that out there. So Jem is hanging out with one of the popular girls, and they went and got cider, which apparently that 2-liter bottle thing that she was drinking the whole first season is liquor.
High alcohol.
In like a
hard cider.
giant container that
in a 2-liter plastic bottle.
They just sell at the Stop and Shop. Okay. I mean, they go there to get it, and Jem almost has another freak out.
Right, because it's
Clearly this is a
right where she
trigger.
saw Kieran.
Yeah. So she needs to quit shopping at Costco and start shopping at Sam's Club. Clearly Costco's a trigger. Don't go to Costco. Who cares how good their hot dogs are? Go to the other place. You cannot handle it. Maybe there's not another spot. Maybe
Yeah.
Rorton's so small, it's like a...
It's probably the only, like, full grocery store.
Yeah. But we find out that the nasty, popular girl might have hidden depths. And we dive into that real quick because Kieran shows up and he's like, here's my extra mousse. Here's my spare mousse. I brought you a container.
Oh, yeah.
And
And
she's like,
Jem being
I don't want your
total
mousse.
cool girl.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She's like, ew, gross. I don't want your like nasty
Like I even
dead guy
use
mousse.
that.
And he's like, you said it. Yes, you use it. I know you do. You said it covers your spots better than like store-bought cosmetics. And she's like, leave my room right now. You're so gross.
Oh my God.
And he looks over at her friend like, I know exactly why you're doing this, but okay. That's fine. I hate me too. He walks out of the room and he leaves. And the girl's like, is your brother a PDS sufferer? And she's like, yeah, I guess he is. But like, whatever. And she's like, no, you're really lucky to have him. She's like, yeah, we're lucky to have him. She's like, no, you're really lucky to have him. You got your brother back forever. And Jem's like, yeah. I mean, yeah. I knew that. I did actually know that. And then we see her, the nasty popular girl, trying to make breakfast for her mother, and her mother won't eat. And today is the Rising Show and Tell Day. So she slips a picture out of a frame and takes it to school. So something's about to happen there pretty quickly. And can I say, this soundtrack, the soundtrack to this show, I know you looked it up because there's a couple of like guitar sections that you said reminded you of
The
Last of Us.
Yeah, Last of Us is this like famous classical guitar composer. And one of the songs sounded reminiscent. So I looked it up, and then the music changed and hasn't gone back to that.
But all the soundtrack is so delightfully melancholy.
Yeah.
It is so like Dashboard Confessional. But somehow,
which is the right time period.
It's the right time period and it's the right tone. It's good. It all fits. But this is their first day on assignment as PDS indentured servants. And Simon arrives late. And Philip's like, you're here, you're late. And Simon's like, sorry, Commandant. And Philip's like, don't fucking call me that. And he's like, oh, sorry, Commandant. Like, Simon's just like, I have absolutely zero shits to give.
Simon is here for a reason of his own choosing.
Yeah, he's not here because you asked him to be here. He's here to talk to Kieran.
He's here because Kieran is here and he needs to talk to Kieran.
Right. So he ends up working with Kieran. They're building the fence. They're rebuilding the fence.
Which, would Simon have been included? Is he a resident of Rorton? Or is it just because he's there?
Maybe because he's
like,
there.
Where's his
probably
legally
any
registered
PDS people?
resident?
I don't know. I don't know if we don't cover that because we don't talk about whether they have like zones they have to stay in, or if because he was here and he attended that meeting, now he's stuck here.
I'm guessing when Amy moved back, like she updated her mailing address or whatever, and Simon also updated his mailing address to Amy's house.
Yeah, maybe that's all it takes.
Yeah, so like he moved his legal residence to this town.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah. So, I don't know. But he talks to Kieran, and Kieran's like shoveling, and we see his scars again, his wrist scars. And he ends up pulling his shirt down, and Simon's like, hey man, we've all got scars. It's fine.
So, Simon
and he
pulls
has
up his
like the most emo conversation I think I've ever heard in my entire life. I mean, it's good. It's poignant. It's well done. It gives us a lot about Simon's character because he's talking about how when he was alive, He thought that every single day was the worst day of his life. He had severe, untreated depression, and he self-medicated with drugs. Because if all life is an illusion anyway, then fuck it. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make that go away. And that's how he died, is he overdosed. And it's bleak and emo. And Kieran's just like, wow, you are bringing down the tone. Right? Somehow you are more extra about this than me. And I just got 3 episodes all about how sad my life was before I died and how I'm trying to make it better now. But oof, man, geez, you take the cake. I mean, it's kind of cute. I mean, cute in in a Simon and Kieran are a little bit flirting kind of way.
Oh, like, yeah, Simon's totally flirting with Kieran. Maybe
Kieran's going to get a little after Rick action. That would be good. I mean, it's been a while. It's been a while. I mean, he lost Rick a long time ago. He hasn't had Rick. It's been a while, right? This isn't necessarily a rebound. It isn't necessarily fast. It's time. It's time for him to start exploring love with somebody else, that you can love more than one person in your life. So that would be interesting if that's what we're setting Simon up to be.
Or if Simon is just manipulating Kieran.
Yeah. And the only PDS sufferer who has not shown up is Amy. And we find that out because Gary arrives, and Gary is going to relieve Philip in the duty of watching the PDS sufferers because Philip has a doctor's appointment.
Fucking Gary?
Because fucking Gary, that's why. There's like 3 men in this village. It's Gary, it's the stringy blonde-haired dude whose name I cannot retain. Who's actually on
like a redemption arc.
Right. And Kieran's dad. And that's like it. And the guy that's on the council. I don't know. For some reason, Gary. Because I think Gary keeps bugging Maxine about a job. That's probably why.
A good point.
Because every time we see him, he's pretty much in there like, hey, can I get paid to do this? Can I get paid to do this? Because now that there's an abundant supply of free labor, I'm sure jobs are hard to come by.
Yes, especially for someone like Gary who just does odd jobs.
Right, and he's got one skill set, and that's killing PDS sufferers or capturing them, and that's a dying profession, literally. So he's there to keep an eye on them. And so Philip goes to the doctor. And it turns out Amy is at the doctor because Amy is talking to the doctor about how her hands shake. And the doctor is like, well, that would probably be the homemade drugs you've been injecting. And she's like, do you think?
God, really? What?
Maybe. I don't know. So he writes her a prescription. And she's leaving and she runs into Philip. And Philip's like, oh, hi, Amy. And we as the viewer have just literally watched him pay somebody to pretend to be Amy because he wants to be with Amy so bad. And Amy's like, fuck off. She does not want to talk to him at all. She's like, what do you want? What do you want? And he's like, oh, I'm just here. I'm at a regular doctor's appointment. It's not STD related or anything. And she's like I fucking asked. I didn't want to know. And he's like, oh, well, just so you know, like, I don't have an STD. I don't have one. And she's like, whatever, you're dribbling your pee on yourself. Because he's got a little pee cup that he's peed in. And he tips it and pours it on himself.
Poor guy.
Oh, Philip.
I mean, I don't pity Philip too much because he's very heavily bullshitting himself on multiple levels. But
I don't know. I don't know where we're going with Philip. I thought we were going one way with Philip, and we've made a 180, and I'm just not sure if we're going to stay on this track.
Given the track record for heavily religious people involved in politics, it does not strike me as unlikely that Philip can maintain this whole fantasy life paying people to pretend to be Amy, and then in his public life aggressively persecuting the people that are publicly like him,
right?
Like he is in private, because so much of it is projection,
right?
Like modern, like current affairs, so much of the persecution is projection.
Yeah.
That as much as this show has been an accurate metaphor for our current state of affairs, that fits right in.
The motherfucking greasy pole. Yep. Well, I mean, if you look at Philip's experience in politics, it's been the vicar. And
Yeah.
the vicar's power came through manipulation and fear-mongering.
Yep.
So as far as Philip's education goes,
That's how you do
politics
it.
is manipulation and fear-mongering. So he
It's
sees...
the way it's always been done.
And he knows Maxine is doing exactly what the vicar did in a better, non-religious way.
Doing it better.
Yeah, but doing it better. She's far more manipulative and far better
She's more appealing to a wider audience.
at fear-mongering than the vicar was. And Philip is like, oh, I have a lot to learn from her because what I have learned I am supposed to aspire to is manipulation. And clearly, you are a masterclass in manipulation, and I am here. I am your student. Please teach me. Instead of learning that, like, politics is for the betterment of the people, it is like politics is about power.
Right.
So I don't know what Philip is going to do if he realizes that his fundamental understanding of what he wants to do with his life is flawed. So maybe that's where we're going with Philip. But I don't know. I'm here. I'm willing to give Philip a chance.
We're only 1/3 of the way through.
We got time. We got... If the first 2 episodes are any indication, we have 25 episodes worth of plot in the next 4 episodes, so it's fine. And we go back to the PDS sufferers who are working on the fence, and they're taking a break, and they're having a chat. And he's handing out flyers because they're going to have a DOA party, a party for all the PDS sufferers. Come in the clothes you were buried in, and we're all going to party. And Gary walks over, and he's like, what are you guys doing? Simon's like, well, we're taking a break. And Gary goes, no, nobody told you could take a break. And Simon's like, we are taking a break, Gary. And Gary's like, okay, fine, 5 minutes.
Because the last time Gary got in a tussle with Simon,
Yeah,
Simon won.
right. Simon won. And so Simon is effectively fear-mongering, using his power over Gary to influence the situation.
Yep.
Much like the people in our politics are doing. I love it when a show sets up that both sides have flaws.
Yes.
That you don't have this wholly good and wholly evil that are against each other. You end up in this,
right. It's groups of people with different values.
Yeah, and it's all messy.
Yeah.
And that's what I like, because that's real life. That's real life. It's all messy. You know, people are always like, well, you can't choose that side. Here's the following 5
I think
flaws.
that's why
I'm
it's
like,
so
okay, well,
relatable.
but I like this mess better than I like that mess. And then we go back to school. And this is where we get our being human reference, because the 3 PDS kids are in the bathroom.
In the bathroom stall.
And they're like, they're going to take Blue Oblivion. The one kid has gotten his hands on some Blue Oblivion, and he just wants to scare the school.
Right.
Which I don't know that I believe. This seems like a lot.
Yeah, because they know like, the stories that they've heard of PDS sufferers who have taken Blue Oblivion pretty much all get killed.
They could very easily get killed. He could very easily kill someone.
Yes.
He's like, I'm going to go rabbit. I'm just going to tear up the school. Well, no.
People are going to be in the way.
People are in the way. You could hurt someone. And it's not believable that the guy who likes Jemima is in on this, because Jemima could get hurt.
Right. She
And they're
almost does
like,
get hurt.
No, do it. Do it. Unless they don't remember the severity of what it was like to be rabid. And so they don't think it's going to be as bad as it ends up being, because he does it. Oh, well, they have the reference where she says, this isn't actually going to work. They said it turns you into a zombie and then you get turned back or whatever. And the one kid's like, yeah, well, she also thinks that there's vampires and werewolves living in Wales, which is in Being Human. They live in
the last
Wales.
season of Being Human.
So, I don't know. They mentioned a name and I meant to look it up, and I was just looking around to see if my phone was anywhere in the room, and I don't think it is. If the name has an immediate connection, it's not obvious. But they're referencing the Being Human. If you haven't seen Being Human, both the BBC or the American version, they're good. It's good. Even Matt liked it.
Yep.
The BBC one definitely jumps the rails, but it's a wild ride. It's a good one. So, in the meantime, this poor zombie kid goes full rabid from the blue oblivion. And the two others, the boy that likes Jemima and the girl, are like, oh shit. And they start screaming and running away because no one is safe from a rabid. And so this kid starts rampaging down the hall and everybody's shutting the doors. And he's trying to get into this one
He breaks a
room
window.
and he breaks a window. And since it's show and tell day, one of Jemima's classmates has brought a machete. And they're like, Jemima, you were in the HVF. Here, take the machete. Go out, kill it. And they shove her out the door with the machete, which the teacher lets them do. And then
Shame on you.
Shame on you. And then shuts the door behind her.
Yep.
Which I guess, to be fair, the British school system does not have the same level of experience with an active, hostile individual in the school.
True. Yeah.
So this teacher probably has never even imagined themselves having to deal with having maybe in this world where PDS sufferers are a thing. But if you were in America, there's a protocol for that. I bet they have a special code over the intercom. Lockdown. Lock your door. Everybody gets down on their hands and knees over in the corner, away from line of sight from the window. Close the blinds.
Stay quiet.
If that doesn't smack of traumatized children having had to go to high school through that climate. And when we went, it wasn't as bad as it is now.
Not even close.
Not even fucking close. And that has been your political statement for this episode. So, shame on this teacher. He lets Jemima go out there and then he shuts the door and locks it behind her. And now she's out there with this machete, which she's even like, no, I kill them with guns. I don't kill them with a machete. This is not my weapon. And they're like, oh, you kill it with a gun, you kill it with a machete, here you go. And they shove her out there. And poor Jemima even pees herself. She is so upset and traumatized and scared. And before this zombie can get to her, before this rabid can get to her, he comes back to himself. And she's standing there. She even bangs on the window and is trying to get back in. And the one nasty popular girl
is grinning.
Is like, she goes, there's your war hero right there. And that's all shitty. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Wow. What a scene.
Yeah, they did not hold back.
Yeah. And we find Jemima later, and she's changed her pants because she wet herself. And the girl comes in with the picture that she'd grabbed that morning. And she holds it up and she goes, you see this guy right here? This is my dad. And he rose during the rising. And you killed him in that grocery store. And I love a good bystander story. Because in the first episode, we saw Jemima walk in. We saw her do the like bang, bang, double tap, shoot 3 or 4 zombies before she even got to Kieran and decided not to kill Kieran. And we didn't talk about who those people were. We didn't discuss the fact that those people would have been somebody's loved one who had died.
Right. So we're adding a lot of nuance to this world.
So it's like, you know, that person whose face you don't even remember, who wasn't even worthy of being shown in the flashbacks? That was my dad. And I'm never going to get him back because you shot him in the head. You did. And for what? Which they didn't know they were going to get cured. They didn't know that was coming.
Right.
I can understand the emotions tied up in it. I can understand everyone being emotional about it. But honestly, they didn't know they were killing people.
Right. They were surviving.
They were surviving. And they did survive. And there were casualties on both sides. And it sucks. And that's why it's so difficult to heal.
Right. And Jemima is aware of the contrast. And she's experiencing trauma because of it.
Yeah.
But she's at least aware of it. Whereas most of the quote unquote bad guys in season 1 were doing absolutely zero to update their world framework
Yeah.
for how things had actually changed.
Yep.
Yeah. So you can't really judge people for doing what they need to do to survive unless when things change, they refuse to.
Right. Like Gary, for instance.
Like Gary.
Because the next scene is Gary asking Maxine Martin to pay him to patrol again.
Right. He is not updating.
He's not
with the world.
updating his model of the world.
Jem is. I think she's stuck because she's so traumatized, she can't.
Right.
But she's at least aware. Like, this girl should be able to see that Jem is suffering.
Yeah. That Jem is realizing the entirety of what she has done and what it means. And the fact that not only did she kill people, even though she didn't know they were people at the time,
Right.
and she can't take it back, but she doesn't know how to do anything else because she's back at school and she's not doing good because she went so long without it, and this isn't her world anymore. This feels jarring to have gone through this situation where as a 14-year-old, she was out killing the Risen, and now she's almost 20, and they're asking her to go to school and study math and learn about biology.
Yep.
And there's show and tell for this part of her life that was horrific and difficult and is continuously traumatizing her, but people are going to bring in a machete because it's a joke.
Right. Yeah, it's what does she call it? A war relic?
Yeah, it's a war relic. Okay. I mean, wow. Way to hit some key talking points here about the effect of war and trauma and the effect of anything that causes PTSD in your life, any kind of trauma that causes it. And then people are like, back to real life, back to day-to-day life, and how that makes it even harder.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which makes it even more relevant to today.
Right.
Because there's still a lot of people that after being, in lockdown during the pandemic for 2 to 3 years, now it's like, okay, everybody.
Back to real life.
Back to real life. Back to the office. Back to the daily grind.
Yeah, it's wild. It definitely affects you.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when we first went into lockdown, I felt so restless. Like, oh, there's so many places I want to go and I can't go. Oh, this sucks. I felt so trapped. And now I'm like, where did I want to go? I don't even remember where I wanted to go. Like, what made me feel trapped? Where was I planning on going that I couldn't go? If I could just stay at the house all day, that would be fine.
Mm-hmm. I do stay at the house
You
all
do
day.
You're like, it is fine. I do it every single day. Sometimes I send Matt out for like a grocery item. Matt, go get cheese. He's like, what is this orange ball of light in the sky? And why does it burn my face?
Ow! Yeah.
It doesn't help that you're a ginger. So
Right. So I'm naturally averse
you're
to the
naturally
sun.
averse to the sun. Or what does the kids keep going? The sun's a deadly laser or something. The sun's a deadly laser. Anyway, Simon and Karen have been continuing their conversation. And Karen's like, oh, we don't have to put up with this forever. It's only for 6 months. We'll be fine. And Simon's like, 6 months? Who told you 6 months? And he's like, well, that's what they said. They said we would be up for evaluation in 6 months. And Simon's like, that means it's a motherfucking scam. They're going to keep pushing you out as far as they can push you out.
Yep.
It's a joke. And Karen goes home and researches it on their family computer. Just love that they have a family computer and it's downstairs in the dining room. Ours was in the living room.
Mine was in the dining room.
Yeah. Your family computer. Fuck laptops. Nobody had laptops. That wasn't a thing. You had a computer. Well, I mean, this is late enough that this is supposed to feel antiquated.
Yeah.
But when computers and the internet was first a thing, that was always in the public Like that was in shared space. You couldn't have that in your own room.
Right. I didn't even have internet at home until I was 14 or 15.
Yeah. Well, that's because we're the Oregon Trail generation. We're elder millennials. I think that's such a funny name. It makes me feel like I should be on a council or something. Yes, elder. Yes.
Oh, I heard this one. Hold on. Yeah, so I saw this on the internet the other day, and it was, none of us have to be millennials anymore. If you were born between the animated Lord of the Rings in 1978 and Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring 2001, you're the Hobbit generation. Promised wealth and adventure, but finding only war and ruin.
So true. Do you know how many times I saw the Fellowship of the Ring in the theaters?
How many?
Would you care to guess?
500,000.
That's too high. Like a reasonable guess.
Like I do with the kids. How many is that? I don't know. More than one, less than a billion.
No, come on. Make a reasonable guess.
15.
A little lower.
8.
Close.
9.
7. I saw it 7 times in the theater. To be fair, the last probably 3 were at the $1.50 theater.
Which
R.I.P.
is a thing that used to exist.
RIP second run movie theaters. First, it went to the movie theater. And when it left the movie theater, it went to the second run movie theaters where you paid like $1.50 or $2. And all the concessions were like $15 for popcorn because it was the only place they made their money. And then you would go and everything was always sticky because it was $1.50. But you paid $1, so who cared? And it was all the old film that had just been played however many times at the previous theater. So sometimes it would be janky. Oh, those were good times. There was one where we used to live and everybody had to wear these multicolored suspenders and a plastic bow tie.
Ew.
I think about that a lot. But anyway, everyone's kind of hooking back up with, they're making poor choices. I think the last 10 to 15 minutes of this episode should be called Everyone is Making Bad Decisions. Because Kieran has just found out that basically it's all a lie. He's a servant or a slave forever, and he's never going to get to go to Paris just because of what he is. And so he decides to go talk to Simon because Simon's got connections.
Simon knows people
is a
in
disciple.
high places.
He's one of the undead prophet's 12 disciples. And the place that he knows Simon is going to be is the DOA party. So Kieran gets out his burial clothes, which are apparently a denim jacket with a flannel shirt underneath and jeans.
And we get a little bit of a hint at the party of why Kieran is so important to Simon and Amy.
Do we?
Simon has been interviewing people.
Oh, he's looking for the first risen.
Well,
he's first person who rose.
Trying to find out. He and Maxine are both trying to identify at least like a ballpark time when each person rose.
Yeah.
And so Simon has been working up to this guy who's one of the earliest. And he basically says, "Oh, yeah, when I rose." And then Kieran walks up. "Oh, I recognize that denim jacket. That denim jacket was there when I rose."
Yeah. And Kieran's like,
implying
do
that
I know
Kieran
you?
is the first or one of the first risen.
He was at least before this guy. Yep. And meanwhile, Jemima goes with Gary because Gary shows up and he's like,
Fucking
"Sup,
Gary.
Jemima?" Fuck Gary, right? And she's like, "Oh my God, Gary, I need a lifeline right now. Plus, I just drank half one of those 2 liters of cider, hard cider." And so she hops in the car with him. And she decides to go on patrol with him because he's not really patrolling. He's doing overtime inspecting the fence, which is how Maxine is going to write it up.
Supervising the work on the fence after hours.
After hours. Even though the PDS sufferers are not there right now, he's quote unquote supervising. And it's just a workaround so he can
Get paid.
He can patrol. Yeah, he can get paid. again. And they're kind of having a heart-to-heart. This is the most soft I've seen Gary. Probably because Jemima's human. And I was really expecting him to try to take advantage of Jemima.
Right. But
I kept waiting I was like braced for it because
I know he pulled over and I'm like, ugh,
I was
fucking
like,
pervert.
Oh God, no. Because she's clearly tipsy and clearly in a low emotional moment. And the only thing he really does is give her gun back, her hand cannon. Let's call it what it is. He gives her a giant fucking gun back. And he's like, I got that from the kid you pawned it to. That's a relic. You know, that's got history.
A piece of history.
You need to keep that. Yeah. And she's like, oh my God, it feels so good to have my gun back. Things make sense now. This is me. This is who I am. This is what my formative years were spent with this gun in my hand. And they go on patrol together like they used to. And meanwhile, Kieran is at this party and everybody's having a really good time and everybody is like high.
Right.
And Kieran's like, why does everybody seem so
up?
And Amy's like, 'cause we just ate brains, dum-dum. And he's like, I'm sorry, what? And she goes, they're sheep brains. And she holds up a plate and she's like, do you want some? And he's like, no.
So
she's
takes
like,
a bite.
They make me feel really good. And she calls him her BDFF, her best dead friend forever. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Where is Simon?
Where is Simon? And he does get to Simon, and they have the conversation off screen about the fact that he wants to leave and he wants Simon's help. And Simon's kind of like,
I don't actually know those kinds of people.
Yeah, I can't actually do that. I don't think he would, even if he could.
Right. And Simon really wants Kieran to stay around.
Yeah. He's like, I thought you were going to stay here and make things better. And Kieran's like, yeah, I actually don't want to do that. I just want to leave and get a better life for myself. And Simon's like, well, I'm here. We could have a better life.
This is when Simon makes the move.
Yeah, he's like a little bit like, so I heard about Rick.
Maybe, like, what does he say? I don't have anything to stay for. Well, there's Amy. Like, there's your family. Yeah, but they're all fine with me leaving. And there's Amy. Yeah, there's Amy. And there's me.
And there's me. And Kieran's like, oh. And then Amy runs up and she's like, hello, handsome. Because she's high on sheep brains. And she's like, I'm going to go get more fire for this, or wood for this beautiful fire.
Yeah.
And she leaves. She runs off into the woods. And meanwhile, the kid that really likes Jemima is at this party too. And he is also tripping on some sheep brains.
Yep.
Which makes you wonder, none of them have eaten this entire time, which means they are capable of, they don't get hungry in the same way that you would expect them to get hungry. So they don't need anything, which means that when they were killing people as zombies, as untreated PDS sufferers, was that literally just like a hit? Like a brain hit?
I think I saw this as a trivia item on IMDb, and it was saying that there was an explanation, I think while the show was airing, that the brain, they got their energy from eating the brains.
Yeah.
But then they didn't want to like try to add that as part of, like, add what do they eat after they've been, medicated, because it would just
complicate things.
It would just be complicated filler.
Yeah, it's like, do vampires shit?
Right.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares if they shit.
Unless it's Demon Under Glass.
Right.
And then they cover vampire excrement.
That's not even you can't, I'm sorry. We can't even discuss that in the same league as In the Flesh. They could have, okay. We're going to do a drunk review of Demon Under Glass someday, and it's going to be epic. And we will discuss vampires peeing when we do that. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But my metaphor stands. There are certain things nobody wants covered.
Right.
Are vampires more attracted to women when they are on their periods? I have read one book where they talked about it, and that's enough. If I had read 0, that would have been better. I don't care, and I don't want to hear about it. It's just one of those things I'm not interested in hearing discussed. And I think this is probably this too. It was like,
Right. They just
don't
didn't
worry
want
about
to
it.
talk about it because it's not important to the story.
Right. That makes sense. But again, following the logic of the sheep brains, literally killing and eating people was like a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so the kid, Jemima's BDFF, who wanted to be her BDFF, is wandering in the woods. He's headed home. He's headed home.
He's just walking down the trail.
Yeah, he's a
headed home.
teenager. He's headed home. And Jemima has gotten out of the car and is running because she thinks she hears a rabbit.
And she is having a full-on PTSD panic attack.
Yeah. And she ends up running through the fence out towards this kid. And then she ends up shooting him in the head. Henry is his name. She ends up shooting Henry in the head. And that's the end of the episode.
And she and Gary are both there staring at Henry.
Yeah.
They both approach him.
And Gary, for once, is like, oh, shit. What have you done?
Yep.
Because even Gary pushes. Gary is gross. Gary's a predator. Gary's I don't like Gary. Fuck Gary. But even Gary knows there's a line.
Right. Like an untreated PDS sufferer.
Yeah.
Okay. Self-defense, maybe.
Right.
If it's necessary. A treated PDS sufferer, that's just, to him, a lesser person, but still a person.
Right. And maybe when Bill was alive, he would have been more on board with it. But killing a PDS sufferer got Bill killed.
Right.
And Gary is a survivor.
Yep.
So no matter how much he may hate them, he recognizes this is at the antithesis to surviving the way he wants to survive, which is by still getting to do whatever the fuck he wants.
Right. By still being a nominally accepted member of society.
Yeah. So he's like, oh, shit. And that's the end of the episode. This was a good episode. This is so plot heavy. It's almost, I'm like, oh God, there's so much to pay attention to. I have to keep track of all these threads.
This felt closer to season 1.
How so?
Like the density.
Oh, yeah. Of
plot.
Emotion?
Yeah, emotion.
Yeah, I feel like season 1 was emotionally dense. Season 2 is plot dense.
Yeah.
I don't think we get any less real commentary because we're still commenting on a lot of things.
Yeah.
But
There's
the
still a lot of
commentary is
allegory.
less of the point.
Right.
It's more like the backdrop on which we're putting these things. So they had the Tony Awards. I just want to put this out there because I think it's really interesting. So you know that the Writers Guild is still on strike.
Yep.
And so they came to a deal with the Writers Guild to still be able to have the Tony Awards if it was unscripted.
Okay.
So no one wrote any scripts for it. All the presenters were just up there freeballing.
Okay.
And that way the WGA would not picket it.
Gotcha.
So there was a presenter who was presenting an award, and she called Governor DeSantis the Grand Wizard on purpose. She goes, oops, I'm sorry. I mean the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, who will hopefully be changing the name of this town immediately because the guy who won was from Plantation, Florida.
Oh.
Yeah. It was like a recognizing a teacher, like a theater teacher for excellence. Okay. And 2 non-binary actors won.
Nice.
So I just want to put that out there, but talk about commentary. That's a good one. That's what TV is for. That's what media is for.
Yes.
And I like when it's presented in this way. Satire has its place, but satire teaches us to laugh at things instead of dealing with them.
Right.
So satire is a double-edged sword. It's important because it highlights things, but it also doesn't solve anything. It just encourages us to oh, let's just laugh at our problems instead of actually dealing with them.
Well, I think it does have some value.
It has its place. Yes.
For bringing it up.
Right.
In a way that's less triggering.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
But it's like satire should be like a slice of pie in a well-balanced meal.
Right. It shouldn't be the only way we do political commentary.
Right.
This is a great way to do commentary.
Yes. I love sci-fi fantasy for here's this concept
Right.
of how a society may or may not be structured.
Right.
And we're going to emphasize some details of that so that we can just very eloquently discuss the repercussions.
Yeah. And it ends up,
the motivations and everything involved.
yeah, it ends up feeling timeless instead of timely and timely. But if you look at like, okay, you watch an SNL skit from the 80s and they have a Ronald Reagan impersonator.
Right.
That doesn't hit the same. You don't give a shit. I don't know Ronald Reagan. I was alive when he was president, but not like appreciably. I couldn't vote or anything, so whatever. It doesn't mean anything to me. But if you showed me a show from the 80s like this, that was showing me like a slice of life from someone who was being discriminated against in the 80s, I could apply that to my life now. It's like a lot of what they were trying to do in the 60s with Star Trek.
Right.
That still feels timely. It still feels timeless because we weren't commenting on a specific cast of characters. We weren't commenting on the president and whatever. We were commenting on like the zeitgeist, the inherent bias in the system, the hatred towards certain groups of people. We were using metaphor, using story, using the toolbox of narrative to craft this commentary that if you watch it now, still feels important. Uhura still feels important. She, in and of herself, is a commentary. And it's beautiful and it's well done. And she's treated better on that show than a lot of people of color, female actors are portrayed or shown or utilized in television now. And that's the 60s. And that's why Star Trek is an enduring show. And that's why I wish this show had gotten more publicity than it did. I hate that it fell in this weird random spot where the whole network was trying to move online.
Right. And it was just this whole corporate scheme.
Right.
And this got kind of cut off and dropped by the side of the road.
Right. And it's so, I know we keep saying this, but it is so well presented. And I feel like presenting it in the way that they did as a zombie show sells it so short. Because people are like, oh, a zombie.
It makes it really approachable for people who wouldn't normally watch.
Right, but like
a really
zombie
heavy
show.
drama.
I'm not going to watch a zombie show. I mean, The Last of Us gets the publicity and the audience it does because you get video game players and television people. And then it got hype, so people went and watched it. I mean, if you're just like, unless you're a zombie person, you're not sitting down like, oh, I think I want to watch a zombie television show today.
That's true.
Yeah. I don't know how else you could have presented it. But anyway, if you know anyone in your life who hasn't seen this show, I don't know, get them to watch it. Let's get it. Let's blow it up a little bit. And then maybe we can get that guy to make his podcast. And then we can get our season 3, even if it's just him telling us what would have happened in season 3.
Graphic audio.
Let's manifest this. We have like reliably around 13 listens per episode. There are a dozen at least.
There's a dozen of you.
There's a dozen of us. We can do this. Assuming it's the same 13 people.
I went to see Transformers Rise of the Beasts the other day.
I did not go.
One of the best lines in the movie One of the lines that stood out as most significant to me was, "Yo, that's some real manifestation."
Because you primed yourself to be ready for the word manifestation because we joke about it so much.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. That's like a big part of some people's lifestyle and it's important to them. And really, it's like meditation and focusing and really aiming yourself.
Right. You're priming yourself.
Yeah.
Really, like psychologically priming yourself by visualizing what you want the outcome to be. You become primed to observe the kinds of things that will get you there.
Right. And that's great.
And it's a useful tool to put in your toolbox.
Right. It is not.
But it's not
going to get you there.
It's not the only tool that should be in your toolbox.
Exactly. All right. Well, I think this is good. I think this was good. I'm looking forward to episode 3. I want to know how we're going to handle this. I feel like in some ways Jemima's story arc has become so much more tumultuous than Kieran's.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is I wasn't expecting that flip. And I'm here to see what happens with it, especially now that she's done something that she can't justify to herself. I mean, she can kind of justify the ones that she did during the Rising.
Right.
But how do you bullshit yourself out of this, back into a place where you feel okay with yourself? I'm interested to see what we do with that. Especially
once she finds out how he felt about her.
He's got that bracelet. She's bound to get a hold of that bracelet because we've been seeing it every episode.
And he has been mentioning it to his friends at school.
Yes. And
every day.
If we know anything about this show, it's that they freaking love foreshadowing.
Yeah.
So
remember, sometimes the strangest things are the most beautiful too.
So be who you are and love what you love. Until next time, friends.
Bye.
Bye.